Just in case you missed it, it's the top 5 sports talkers of the day. Now, it's time for Dan Barrero's Top 5 at 5. Brought to you by Gutter Helmet of Minnesota. Never clean your gutters again. Learn more at gutterhelmetmn.com.
Man, oh man, things are taking rather wicked turns, I should say, in Mexico, south of the border.
Yeah.
And it seems to be escalating beyond Puerto Vallarta. That there are other areas being affected as well. Some big drug kingpin gets nailed, and now all sorts of blowback has taken place. We might get into that a little bit later in the broadcast today or tomorrow. Top 5?
Quick congratulations to a friend of ours, a Fan Radio Network partner, our guy Jack Michaels from 740 The Fan.
Yes.
Announced today, or it was announced today, that he is being inducted into the North Dakota Associated Press Sportscasters and Sports Writers Hall of Fame.
Congratulations.
That's the Jack
outstanding.
Michaels Show, noon to 1. 34 years of broadcasting. I'm actually surprised he's not already in it. But congratulations to Jack.
Good for him.
The voice of the Bison, has done North Dakota stuff.
That's outstanding.
Still does North Dakota stuff, University of Mary. He always texts me that he'll be listening, driving from Bismarck to Dickinson to Fargo to Grand Forks. He catches us on all of our affiliates out there. But
beautiful.
Great dude, great guy. So congratulations, Jack, on a wonderful and I would say overdue honor. Where do we want to begin? Let's start with the Minnesota Timberwolves. Man, tough luck, I thought. Rudy Gobert is suspended. Naz Reid has a bad shoulder. Julius Randle apparently is battling a non-COVID illness. And they hung in as best they could. But it wasn't quite enough against the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference without Joel Embiid or Paul George to knock off the Philadelphia 76ers last night. So the positive vibes, the good feelings that we had from coming back from the break and taking care of the Cooper Flagg less and Anthony Davis less, and Kyrie Irving less, Dallas Mavericks on Friday, didn't last long. Maxey with 39 points, and we lost by 27.
It depends on how you look at it, because we had a texter earlier who was ready to pillory Johnny, pillory me, pillory you, although my issue, as I said at the start of the show, was not so much whether it's the loss of the century, as I don't like when it's characterized an inaccurate way that conveniently reminds people who we have injured, but forgets to remember who else was injured on Philly's team, not to mention the fact that they had played the night before. Again, we all get it. We understand the way the league works right now, but the reality is there are some games where as you see them play out and you see the lack of competitiveness, they just don't look good or feel good. And it may be they'll win their next 9 in a row. But while you're watching it, it's a bad look. It's a bad look for a good team. And again, it cannot be excused away on the basis of who was out, given who Philadelphia also had out. And I don't care if they're more accustomed to playing with people out. You're at home. They had played the night before. You're supposed to be the better team. And it isn't illegal. I looked this up. It's not illegal for other players to have great games in a situation where that's kind of what you're looking for. You can't always count on it, but you can. It's allowed. And often, funny, it happens. So we'll see. Now, it does get interesting in that you got 3 road games in a row.
Yep. Starting in Portland.
Culminating with the Nuggets, right? I think that's the 3rd game.
Yes, it's the Nuggets, the Clippers. I'm sorry, the Blazers, the Clippers, and then the Nuggets.
Yeah. So we'll see where we are at that point. And as you said earlier, you can talk yourself out of anything being significant, but it's also an opportunity to take advantage of the fact that everybody else you're kind of fighting with in the middle of the playoff standings all happened to lose yesterday.
Yeah, and you could have jumped up to, I think, the 4, even if it was for a minute. It's Peacock, Prime Video, and ABC are the next 3. Peacock for Portland, Prime Video for LA, and ABC, an afternoon game for Denver. I always go back to the Flip Saunders line that he said to you a million times over the years, the late, great Flip Saunders. That's on true. The Funkadelic. Yeah. In the NBA, you can find a reason to lose every single night if you so choose. Says the good teams, the ones that you have to worry about, they don't find that reason.
100% true.
They find a way. So, anyway. Joe Ryan.
He's okay?
He's relatable because an MRI today revealed inflammation in his back, but nothing more serious. So they had an MRI. They were worried about some stuff. He's got some tightness, according to new general manager Jeremy Zoll, dealing with some inflammation, and as a result has some tightness. He'll be down a few days just to let things calm down. We'll progress him as tolerated and don't envision this impacting his readiness for opening day.
Who's that from, the owner?
No, it's from...
No, I figured
the owner talked next. I don't have his quote.
Okay.
But there you go.
Yeah.
So it's some tightness and some inflammation, but that's it for Joe Ryan.
Okay.
Everybody feel better?
I feel left out. I mean, I feel like a little betrayed if there's a day goes by without another quote from Tom Polak. Yeah, he's talking to everybody.
There's two things we need every day.
Talking to vendors. He's talking to clubhouse operatives. He's talking to players. He's talking to manager. He's talking to coaches, broadcasters. There's nobody he doesn't talk to right now. The guys who mow the lawn, the whole bit.
I think it's two things we need every day. We need to express our gratitude for Finchie, which I don't think you've done today. Express your daily gratitude for Finchie.
No, I'm late on that. You're right.
So sneak that in maybe before Al Michaels joins in 15 minutes.
Right.
And need to react to something Tom, right? Tom Polak.
Tom, I think this is Tom Polak.
Has to say.
Yeah.
So
I can't argue with you.
there you go. I kind of want to stay on schedule.
All right, let's do it.
We know that the U.S. won gold yesterday, so the men and women sweep Canada in the Olympics in Milan Cortina and are coming back golden.
And the next Winter Olympics is in France. Is that true?
Yes.
France, the French Alps.
2030, yes.
Right around the corner is what it is. I miss the Winter Olympics already. I enjoyed it.
You do. I did get accustomed, as much as I ripped it on Friday, to my morning curling. You know, you have your coffee.
Well,
you get your crumpet.
I think you may have had a point on the curling. I think there may have been a little bit too much curling on TV.
There's so much curling.
I didn't realize there was that many events or teams or
we added
combinations.
the mixed, I think, too, right?
Yeah,
is that new?
Yeah. I don't know. I have no idea.
There's so much curling.
I have absolutely no idea. But there's a lot of other stuff worthy of discussion, and we're going to get into some of that a little bit later. And as you mentioned, Al Michaels is coming up at the bottom of the hour. Let's stay on schedule. I got a really, I think, enlightening letter from a native Canadian today, a listener that I want to get to as well. Stay tuned.
Join Meat Sauce and Miller Lite at Dave's Town Club in Delano this Thursday from 5 to 7. Stop by for drink specials, games, and register for a chance to win a spot in the Vikings Foundation Golf Tournament. Full details now at KFAN.com, keyword golf.
So I think we ended up finishing second in total medals and gold to Norway in both cases, correct? We saluted the Norwegian onslaught last week.
It's what they do.
It's what they do. Individual events, they're big in.
They build Winter Olympic champions.
They do.
And have fun doing it.
And I think, did I see we set a record for U.S. golds won? I'm talking about an American record. I thought I read that, but we'll double check that before we are done. What does Dan think of Snoop Dogg and Martha Stewart as a team on NBC? I think Snoop is great at any of this stuff that he does. I think he's outstanding. The Martha part, I don't get the bit. I got it at first a little bit, but I said, okay, all right. Okay, I get it. I get what you're trying to do. But Snoop, I think he's become, he's one of those guys who, there's people who are on as much as he is, you feel like they're overexposed. For some reason, it doesn't bother me with him.
Not there
I just
yet.
think he pulls it off pretty well.
12 gold medals is a new record for gold medals won in the single Winter Olympics.
Okay, that's not bad.
It surpassed the previous record of 10, which was set in Salt Lake City in 2002.
If the refs or French were screwed during the next Winter Olympics, ask the American pairs of figure skaters. And Dan, this just in, let me hit the breaking news sounder because it applies, I guess. It worked. The French officials have already announced that the hockey arena is behind schedule for 2030. The hockey arena is behind schedule for 2030. It is amusing to look back on all of the fear and loathing. And I guess you got to do the stories because there's, I guess, a chance that it's not that the arena's not going to be was not going to be ready at all.
Yeah.
Right. So I guess you have to cover it. But I do think
we do it every time.
And there's too much of it. And chances are they're going to get done. Right. I mean, realistically, and maybe there's a couple of toilets not hooked up in one of the locker rooms.
Right. They'll figure it out.
But they're going to figure the damn thing out more times than not.
it's maybe now that the Milan Cortina Olympics is done, maybe we could, for the Southwest Light Rail train, grab some of their engineers as consultants on maybe how to finish things under a tight deadline.
Idea. Not a bad idea.
That's the opposite.
Yeah,
they say it's going to be, maybe what they needed is a little urgency. Like, we need to have this done by. We need to have riders by, and because they seem to just keep moving the deadline. Although I think they're practicing the runs, right? Isn't it going to open next year? I thought I saw that on Fox 9
That's true.
recently.
By the way, we got into the discussion, the Kash Patel discussion in the locker room, and then the Trump speaking via phone, and the grudging comment about, well, the women are going to be invited too. Although I guess the latest info is the U.S. women's Olympic hockey team has declined the invitation to attend the State of the Union. I don't know if they're also invited to the White House, how that's going to go. But this was earlier in the games, and I forgive me for not remembering the name of the women's individual figure skating champ. It was from the United States, as I recall, right? Who won it?
Alyssa, right? Was her first name?
I do not remember. Yes, that sounds right. And so I happened to see on X one day, I don't remember where the organization, what state they were from, but it was some sort of Republican organization that was attempting to congratulate her on her gold medal. Okay. And eventually, maybe not surprisingly, given the world in which we live, somebody, now I don't know if it was somebody in an official capacity or just some rube, wanted to make clear via X in responding that she hates Republicans. So she would hate this particular sentiment. And I looked at it, and I think I'm getting better at this because I'm not as angry about it as I used to be, because you see this sort of thing all the time. But it does almost make me laugh. The notion that wherever you are politically on this, that somebody gets so hot and bothered over a note of congratulation, right? Whatever the organization is, and whatever thoughts you might have about the Sharks, Jets, etc., that you want to go out of your way to almost deny them the opportunity to congratulate this woman. And I'm trying to figure out what that gains, other than you feeling better about yourself, right? That I've stood tall here and said, she hates you. She hates Republicans. Who cares? The irony here is if the organization doesn't acknowledge, if they've acknowledged other winners, there's going to be people going, why wouldn't you give her proper credit? What does this process, other than exhaust us, what does that process do? None of that means you can't have conviction. But the fact that you'd actually be offended by and actually have to think you have to raise to that level she can't stand you, so I am denying you the opportunity to congratulate her. What the hell is about that? And, to Tirico's message, which was about, this is the great unifier, it is for a minute, but it doesn't last that long, does it? It might last as long as the competition. And then it's on the basis of messages being conveyed like that. It's like, I don't know who you're performing for and what exactly you're going to get out of it. There's nothing lost by any group congratulating an individual who had done well for whatever reason that they were trying to do it. I don't think it was a troll. Maybe it was, and I don't know. Bradshaw and Bryant, KFAN text line 64686. Quinn Hughes sees ghosts. Faber hits 2 posts. Canadians cry the most. Wolves in 5. Not bad. Let's come back and chat with our old friend, the legendary broadcaster, back with us once again. And what a perfect day to chat with him, Al Michaels. That's next.
Yeah.
legendary voice of Al Michaels on this Monday afternoon here in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. Thanks again for your time. As I said, as always, you've been great with us over the years, and I know you watched yesterday. I'm curious how you processed it. What did you see? What were your impressions? What did you take out of the U.S. victory?
Well, I think I knew it was going to be a close and competitive and exciting game, and I thought the teams were very evenly matched. You know, as a huge hockey fan and a huge L.A. Kings fan, and I follow the NHL very closely, you know, I knew who all the guys were.
Sure.
And I knew this was set up to be a really good game. But I think, Dan, what the Four Nations has brought and what the Olympic hockey has now brought is a level of hockey that I've never seen before. Mm-hmm. And I think I read I can't remember who it was. It might have been Chris Pronger. I was reading about somebody on the internet today, former player, who said this is a sport I've never seen at this level. And it's right. I mean, that game was just so back and forth, as were so many of these games in the Olympics. And the players, who are the best in the world, are so invested in this and invested in playing in the Olympics and playing for their country. And the way they go all out, I mean, it's at warp speed, and you got the best of the best of the best. And hockey, of course, is such a random game in so many ways. Sure. I mean, think about the double post yesterday. If that puck goes in, the crazy bounces that the puck always takes, and how quickly the game can end. And I was telling somebody earlier today, Dan, that hockey, I think, is the only sport where at the end of the game, the fans are more exhausted than the players.
That's a great way to put it.
You know, you're just dying 1,000 deaths. You score, they almost score. You might score again. You know, and then you've got this going back and forth and back and forth. There's nothing like it, and that's why it's my favorite sport.
You know, as I'm sure you're well aware, leading up to the game yesterday, really always going back even before the Olympics began, there was this sense of there's an effort to try to compare it to 1980 because it was such a seismic event, obviously. And we talked about this a lot on the air, Justin, my producer, and I said, you know, I don't think people should force this because there's only one of those. But you can speak to this. Are there ways in which you think the analogy applies and ways in which it's better left alone? What do you think?
Well, I think, number one, you have to remember where we were as a country in 1980, and we were facing our arch enemy at that time, at maybe the apex of the Cold War. And a lot was going on, and we had amateurs, and they had professionals in the guise of amateurs. And it was in our country on top of it. And the enormity of the upset, just in a sports sense. I mean, somebody asked me what DraftKings might have had that game at, and I said, I don't know, 50 to 1, 100 to 1. You can pick your price in terms of that game. So the magnitude of the upset was unbelievable. And then you pair that with where the country was at that point. That is a one-off of one-offs. Now, the similarities, I think, to me would be, and again, you know, Canada's not our arch enemy, except maybe in the White House. I mean, they're not. They're our buddies and friends, and we love them. But so on that level, it bears no semblance. I think the similarities would be what this has done for hockey in the United States. I think I looked it up back in the 50s and 60s when I was a kid growing up in New York, and I loved the New York Rangers. I think there were like 3 or 4 guys in the entire National Hockey League who were American-born. And then by 1980, I think about 8 or 9% of the rosters were American-born. And now it's almost 30%. It's 30%. A third of the National Hockey League is American-born. And I think that starts with maybe 1960 early on, certainly 1980. Sure. You move ahead to the HBO documentary in 2001. You move ahead to Miracle with Kurt Russell playing Herb Brooks, the movie, which every kid, I think, has now seen. There's a new Netflix documentary out right now, which is phenomenal. You've got yesterday's game. I think what this will do, Dan, it'll make more kids more excited about playing hockey. And, look where we come. I mean, you're there in the hotbed of hockey right there. Minnesota, of course, is when you think about, Minnesota, you think about hockey, obviously, and all of the great hockey that's played up there, both, junior hockey and high school hockey
all the way back,
and college hockey. It's tremendous. And I think what this will do, it'll get more kids more interested. And the wonderful thing about this sport, Dan, is, think about this. So when I'm growing up in the NHL draft years and years and years ago, the number one pick would always be from like Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, or from northern Manitoba. And then 10 or 12 years ago, I'm watching the draft, and I'm going, they picked a kid from where? Scottsdale, Arizona? Right. And that, of course, was Austin Matthews, the captain of the U.S. team, plays for the Maple Leafs, did a great job, obviously, in the Olympics. But that's how great hockey has become. And I think this will add a little bit more fuel to that fire. And I think there are a whole bunch of kids around this country today going, I want to learn to play hockey.
I think another part of it, even if you're a more casual hockey fan and maybe a big Olympics fan, is I don't have to tell you this, we're in a 24/7 hype cycle because of all the social media ways in which people attempt to communicate with each other, sometimes not so well. And it's rare when an event that is as hyped as, this potential matchup, that is as hyped as this thing has been, ends up meeting the moment, right? That's another thing that occurs to me, is you can't ask for much more drama than we had yesterday in Italy.
Totally. I agree with you 1,000%, because very often events that are hyped to that degree do not live up to what the hype was. And I think back, somebody once asked me, what is the most hyped event that I have done that exceeded expectations? I got to go all the way back. I called the Hagler-Hearns fight back in 1985. And that was a fight that in those years, you recall, the welterweight and middleweight divisions were that's where boxing was at that particular point. You had Roberto Duran, you had Sugar Ray Leonard, you had Marvin Hagler, you had Tommy Hearns, and they'd all met each other except for Hagler and Hearns. So everybody's like, wow, this is going to be the fight of the decade, the fight of whatever it's going to be. And then they went out and they had the round of the century in the first round. That's the one event that I would say that not only lived up to the hype, but blew the hype away. And in yesterday's game, we were all excited about that and the rest of it, and that certainly lived up to all of our expectations going into overtime. The only thing I would say that I don't like, Dan, is I don't like the 3-on-3 in the Olympics. Yep. I wanted to see that game go until 2:30 in the morning. That needed to be 5-on-5 and play it like you do in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
There's no question. Some of the most mythical games here, or games that became very mythical, were high school state tournament title games that went several overtimes, and that just adds to the mystique. So I'm with you on that. I don't want to get too far into boxing, but you raise an interesting question, because I used to be a newspaper guy, and I have told people, for sheer anticipation and buzz, some of the best fights that I attended, the presentation, the anticipation shortly before the bell, before the opening announcement, when everybody's around the ring, I don't think anything touches that. Doesn't always mean the fight itself's going to match it, but for you, in terms of anticipating, in terms of buzz, is that it for you? Would it be some of the great boxing matches we're talking about here? Because I just don't think anything quite compares to that setting in the ring or around the ring.
You're on top of it, man. I'm telling you, because you've got two guys. It's not a team coming out on the ice or on a football field or on a basketball court. It's two guys. Two guys coming out, right, in robes, right, with entourages, and they come down the aisles, and the crowd is going crazy. And that Hagler-Hearns fight, of course I remember exactly. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, my God, these two guys, I mean, they're alone. They're alone. You got everybody is going to be watching, and hey, I don't know how they're able to lift their arms once they get into the ring. But you're right, the anticipation before a great fight, and especially a heavyweight championship fight. You have to go back, obviously, to the Muhammad Ali days and the rest. There's nothing really to compare to that. Because the rest of the events all have, the teams are coming out, and these days, of course, national anthems and the whole thing, and God Bless America on top of it, and the flyovers, blah, 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 blah. But boy, oh boy, when those two guys are getting into a ring and they're walking down the aisle, wow. I mean, the hair is standing up on your arms and your back and everywhere on your body, because it's almost surreal. And I think that would be, I'm with you. That's the number one thing I would think of in terms of, the anticipation before a bell rings.
We are chatting with the legendary Al Michaels here on The Fan. Does it feel like 46 years ago to you, the Miracle?
It does and it doesn't. It comes and it goes. And, there are times when, nobody's really talking about it. And then it seems like a long time. And then you got a situation like you've had over the past couple of weeks, and it seems very clear in my mind. And all of a sudden, the synapses of your brain open up wide, and I can feel almost everything I felt in Lake Placid. Just walking to the arena with Ken Dryden before that game, being out on the street after we beat Finland and running into Micah Ruzioni, who told me about the great Herb Brooks speech before the third period of the Finland game when they're down 2-1. And all of a sudden it comes back. It comes back in spades. And then of course, you see, I've seen the tape 18 million times, of course. But the odd thing for me, Dan, is when I see the tape, I mean, I know what's going to happen. I know what I'm going to say, but I'm really watching it in the third person. I'm kind of I love being on the outside looking in and exulting like everybody else does. It's amazing.
I believe it. I think we talked about this last time, because you're asked all the time about the line. And to me, and you made it clear, it's not something you put down on paper. You had no idea exactly what was going to happen. And I always felt that was the beauty of it. That's what made it what it was. If you had planned it or tried to plan it or tried to choreograph it or script it, that's how it comes off. And the reason it stays with people, Al, is you didn't script it. You simply reacted to the moment.
You got it. And I had to, because at that point, number one, I thought there was zero chance the U.S. could win the game. And all I was hoping for is that it would stay within 2 goals, like in the middle of the second period. Yep. Otherwise, in those years, the iconic Roone Arledge, who was running ABC Sports at the time and helped to create Wide World and Monday Night Football and all of the rest, Roone wasn't a big hockey fan. And if the score had become something like 4-1, knowing what was going on in the truck, they might have gone to ski jumping or biathlon or women's ordinals or whatever. They would have come away from the game and just checked in periodically. So all I wanted was for the game to stay close as long as it could. So when all of a sudden, look, we trailed 3 times in that game. 1-0, 2-1, 3-2. So even though we're down, at least the game is sort of within reach at the end of the second period, even though I still thought, the Soviets would dominate the third and run away with it. Now we get the tying goal. Now we get the Eruzione goal with 10 minutes to go. And now this is a whole different animal. The building is shaking. I mean, I did the earthquake in 1989 in the World Series in San Francisco. That building was shaking like San Francisco was shaking at that moment in time in 89. So the place is going crazy. The truck is going crazy. They're screaming all kinds of stuff at me. And I'm just trying to concentrate like crazy on the game, because the Soviets are putting a lot of pressure on. I mean, that game could have ended with a Soviet goal, with Craig making a great save, any number of ways. So all I'm thinking about is just call the game, stay in the game to the very end. And then when the puck came out to center ice with about 6 seconds left, and there was no time for the Soviets to mount another attack, the word that came into my head was miraculous. It got morphed into a question and an answer. I couldn't have gotten luckier, because I guess to this day it still plays.
It does.
And the word miracle is now attached to all of it. But that was serendipitous, Dan. That was just blind luck. blind luck that the puck came out to center ice, and miraculous came into my head, and out came a question and an answer. Simple as that. And you're right. Because if you think of something to say, it sounds scripted and phony, and you might as well be doing a movie.
That's it. And
not a live broadcast.
And frankly, we've heard that. We do hear it from time to time where it's like, oh, man, you're trying too hard. But I guess that's just the way it works occasionally. Real quick, you worked with Kenny Dryden, who, we have the great Lou Nanne on every week during the hockey season. And Louie helped us get Kenny on a couple of 3 years ago. He, of course, as you know, has passed on. And I was absolutely fascinated by him, how his mind worked. He was a terrific interview. What do you remember about him? What was he like to work with, and how did he strike you?
Everything you remember is correct. I loved working with him. Number one, he was a brilliant man. He retired at the apex of his career. He won, 5 or 6 Vezinas and the same number or close of Stanley Cups. He retired at age 30. He just wanted to experience a lot of other things in life. And the first thing that he experienced in life outside of hockey was broadcasting. So he and I got together, and we were paired for Lake Placid, obviously. We met in Moscow because there was a tournament going on in December of '79 featuring all of the Olympic teams except the U.S. team. So we were able to scout the Soviets, Czechoslovakia, Finland, Sweden, you name it, Romania. Kenny had played against them as well in the Canada Cup, so he knew them inside out. He knew the sport inside out. He was a brilliant man. We sat down to dinner the first night we met in Moscow before the tournament started, and Kenny explained to me, I asked him to explain to me the differences between the National Hockey League brand of hockey and international hockey on the wider rink. And Kenny delivered a dissertation which was phenomenal. I mean, that taught me everything I ever needed to know about the difference between international hockey and the NHL brand. So Kenny went on for about 5, 6, 7 minutes, and then he said to me, and you can picture, first of all, Kenny looked like a college professor.
Yes, he did.
Imposing. I mean, Kenny had everything but a dog at his feet and a robe and the whole thing and slippers
and a pipe.
So he was that kind of a guy, but an imposing man.
Yes.
And then Ken said to me, "Do you think this is the type of thing the American audience will be interested in?" I said, "Ken, yes. But let me introduce you to the world of television." Can you say that in 8 seconds? Because that's about all the time you're going to have. And he was phenomenal. And we got to work 3 Olympics. We worked the Sarajevo in '84, the Calgary in '88 when our teams weren't very good. But to share that moment in time with him was great. And when Kenny passed, and I had no idea he was sick, and I heard it. I mean, Dan, that was like a dagger to me. That was a dagger. Because you share a moment like that with somebody like Kenny Dryden. He was tremendous. I mean, we overuse the word or term Renaissance man. No, Ken was a Renaissance man, 1,000%.
Such a fine mind. You mentioned Roone. I want to, again, I didn't intend to originally go down this road, but you mentioned him, and I don't think we've talked about him before, and I am old enough to remember those days, Wide World of Sports. In fact, I was in Sarajevo. In fact, I went on one of those junkets in December that you were on, and you guys all were very generous with your time in those situations, and great background for newspaper people as well. Give me, to the kids who don't know who Roone is, what did he successfully tap into that no one else seemed able to?
A couple of things. Number one, he created Wide World of Sports, which enabled you to see things you thought you couldn't see, and that's during the advent of satellite television. So all of a sudden, you could now show people Jim McKay hitting a golf ball off the Great Wall of China. You could get behind the Iron Curtain and get to see gymnastics from Moscow. You could get to Cuba. Cuba opened up for Wide World of Sports because they were so proud of their amateur boxing program with Teofilo Stevenson. So Roone was able to take you, with Jim McKay hosting, around the world to see places you couldn't have seen on television before Wide World started. He had that. He, of course, had the idea for Monday Night Football in 1970, which turned out to be a gigantic success and still is, obviously. But I think one of Roone's principles was the games have a similarity to them. You know, games can be great, fabulous, or not so good. But it's a game. What Roone wanted to do is make you invested, the viewer, in the people, the personalities. And that's why he was able to create legendary performers like Olga Korbut and Nadia Comaneci. I mean, nobody was really watching gymnastics, but he made them superstars by telling you about their background and how they were able to do this. It was called Up Close and Personal.
That's right.
And now, of course, it's a part and parcel of like almost every telecast you see. Roone said the people are the most important thing. You want to get the viewers invested in people.
And now, as you say, we take it for granted, but that wasn't the case back then. He really got that started.
Correct.
I also felt like the broadcasts were very literate. And, not just with Jim McKay, but certainly starting, in my view, with Jim McKay. I felt like there was less screaming. There was, as I said, literate. It felt like there was better preparation in the writing. Everything just seemed so effective in that sense and very, very polished in a good way.
Agreed, and nowadays it's almost like people are trying to get hits on YouTube or TikTok or whatever the hell it is. Not everybody, but I mean, to me, calm down. You don't have to scream your way through a telecast, but some people, I guess, like it. Dan, what can I tell you? But to me, you don't. My theory's always been: don't overwhelm drama. Build it, and let it happen organically. So, I don't know.
The cliche.
Maybe I'm a dinosaur in this regard. Who the hell knows?
Well, you're holding up pretty nicely. Less is more, I think, is the statement that people go with. And it can be in literature, it can be in broadcasting, whatever the case may be. Don't be afraid to occasionally, not overstate. I've kept you way too long here. I guess I feel obligated, though, to ask. So, are you year to year now in terms of broadcasting? Are you 10 years? I mean, how do you go about deciding when Al Michaels has had enough in the booth?
Well, this will be year 5 for me going into Amazon this fall. I still love what I do, Dan. I still get a kick out of it. I still enjoy it. I think if I feel like I can't be who I've been, at least get really close to it, and and not make people groan and go, remember what it used to be. Some people I'm sure think I'm there right now. I don't. And the Amazon people I work with have been fantastic, and they've basically said to me, "Oh no, we want you. What do you want to do?" I said, "Well, I'll do another year." They say, "Great. You tell us." They've been phenomenal in that regard. So we're off and running. This will be, year 42 for me in the National Football League coming up. It's crazy, man. It's crazy.
That is unbelievable. And to me, you sound as good as you've ever been. It's the old deal of there's 4 or 5 times in every broadcast where I go, yeah, you still got it. It's just, I don't see it. Now, again, as you know, there's always going to be critics out there. There's always people looking for stuff. But nevertheless, sure. I can tell that it seems to be the passion is every bit as much there as it's ever been. I don't think it doesn't appear to me you've lost any of that.
Thank you. I agree. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the time. I appreciate it and hope we can do this again. But you've been, like I said, great to us over the years. Thanks so much.
Okay, Dan. Always a pleasure. Take care, man.
Al Michaels, kind enough to join us right before the start of the program today. Very good to catch up with him. Great idea by Gaardsy to reach out to him. Again, you never know. I mean, sometimes he's available, sometimes he's not. But it is, I'm glad we were able to get into some other areas beyond the Miracle Game, which we've talked to him about before, the broadcast. It's always worth revisiting. It's always going to be in this country. And then his own updated views about the influence of this game this time around. But I like getting into him about some of the other stuff, including, Roone Arledge, the architect of the wide world of sports, his time with Kenny Dryden, who became a terrific guest on this show, thanks to Lou Nanny, etc. So always good. And one of the texts we got was, wish Al has been great, wish he had this energy on Thursday Night Football. I will tell you again, everybody has a right to their opinion, but I think the energy thing on him has been way overrated. I just don't sense it. He has never been an over-the-top broadcaster, and I don't mind some who are. Kevin Harlan is an over-the-top broadcaster, and I love him. It shows again that greatness can come in a lot of different packages. I think there was a couple years ago where there were a couple of really good games where it kind of sounded like, okay, this is pretty exciting, but that went away. I don't sense any change of any magnitude in that regard for me, and he can come on this show anytime. He was absolutely outstanding.
Well, what I would say to that criticism, if that's true, and I'm not super locked in on Amazon Prime Thursday Night Football.
I'm with you. That's
if that's true, I could not care less. Because if Al Michaels wants to work until he's 98 years old, Al Michaels should work till he's 98 years old.
And he said it. I don't think it's the sort of thing where he even said, look, you're always going to have people who are going to go after you, but I have to feel like I'm still close to what I'm able to do. If at some point in your own mind you go, no, I'm not as quick, I'm missing too much stuff, whatever the case may be, then that's another issue, but I don't see it. And the voice is just so good.
I feel so good hearing his voice.
It
all
is.
The time.
It's we use this term maybe too much, but effortless. He's another one of those effortless people at his job, and that's part of the reason I think he does it so well. And great history, even talking to him about the boxing stuff that he did as well a long, long time ago. Top of the hour break, I want to try to pay off the tease regarding, I thought, a very disarming letter from a Canadian regarding what took place yesterday. And also get to a little bit about what's going on south of the border in Mexico. It sounds fairly violent and grim, and it is stranding a number of U.S. Individuals, some, by the way, who live there part of the year, and others who are just vacationing there as well. So it's a combo platter of both. We'll get to some of the details on that and remind you what you might have missed from the rest of the program and set up, I think, what's going to be a very good week. We had a lot of good stuff all week long right here in the Fan. All right, might as well play the Olympics music at least one more time. I'm guessing we might even have a guest tomorrow that'll help us extend this thing out, but let's play it today. I didn't watch any of the closing ceremonies. Were they anything to write home about? Were they aesthetically pleasing? Did anybody comment on them?
Watch none.
Anybody who did, let us know via the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line 64686. Dateline Vail, Colorado. American skier Lindsey Vonn says she nearly lost her left leg following a frightening crash in the women's downhill at the Milan Cortina Olympics. She shared in an Instagram post today that her injuries went far beyond the complex tibia fracture in the leg she initially revealed after clipping a gate and sailing off course just 13 seconds into her run on Feb 8. The 41-year-old Vaughn said the trauma from the crash led to compartment syndrome in the leg. Compartment syndrome involves excessive pressure building up inside a muscle, either from bleeding or swelling. High pressure restricts blood flow and can lead to permanent injury if not treated quickly. When you have so much trauma to one area of your body, she said, there's too much blood and it gets stuck and it basically crushes everything. She credited Dr. Tom Hackett, an orthopedic surgeon who works for Vaughn and Team USA, for conducting a fasciotomy, Fasciotomy, to salvage her leg. He filleted it open and let it breathe, and he saved me. Isn't that what Teddy Bridgewater had, compartment syndrome? Wasn't it something very similar?
I don't know.
When he had his cataclysmic injury, back in 10 years ago, 2016.
I'll check Teddy.
Team practice.
But I know that our old victim of the bumper-to-bumper curse, Jordan Hicks, the old linebacker, when we had him on.
Oh, that's right.
That's what he had.
That's true.
His injury, because I remember like a month later when he came back on, he talked about it.
Maybe in Teddy's case, he was headed that way, if not for the quick work they did reacting to the leg. I thought, I'm looking at a quote, a surgeon describing it as a horribly grotesque injury. It's almost like a war wound. Everything is blown. And it reads here, one of the stories, Bridgewater was at risk of losing his leg. So I think it was something very similar. The injury itself might have been different, but I think compartment syndrome had something to do with that. But as you mentioned, Jordan Hicks talked to us about that very issue.
And even though I knew it was coming, because I read the same story and I read what she had to say about it. When you say filleted the leg, I mean, it gives like shivers. Like it's one of those where I'm just like, oh my God, when you think about it, what they had to do. And that's what Hicks talked about. I remember it gets me every time.
Yeah. 100%
crazy.
True. So again, that takes the story in Vaughn's case, because we were all doing the debate, right? Well, she have a right to do it. It's her life. She can do what she wants. I'm not going to lie to you and deny that if you say to me, well, there's a chance you might lose your leg doing this, I, again, would respect her right to do it, but I'd say, now it's a little less, I think, slam dunkish and automatic. Now, how you could possibly predict that, nobody can, but you have to wonder if the vulnerability of the leg contributed to the end result here, which made the injury from the crash or more cataclysmic, I guess one could say. Who knows? In any case, an interesting note from Vaughn giving us more detail at this point. All right, what do you make of this letter? Got this into my at KFAN.com to me,
okay,
to my own email. This came in at 1:55 this afternoon from Christopher. Dan, I'm writing to you as a native Canadian and a resident of Minnesota for the past 20-plus years. Immediately after the United States beat Canada in the men's gold medal game, I received a text message from my father that read, all these American players are just the children of great Canadian NHLers born in the U.S. Now, I didn't look up the validity of the statement from my dad because it doesn't matter. They would still be American. The point is that a lot of Canadians are bitter with the loss yesterday. We heard that from Wes Walls talking about his parents.
Yeah, he won't even call his family until today.
Gave him an extra day to deal with it. To them, he writes, America is the land of cowboys, Disney World, and Taylor Swift. Yes, even to Canadians, Minnesota is generally considered flyover country. To Canadians, half that team was, quote, wrangling cattle, then decided to pick up a hockey stick. Living here for 20-plus years gives me a different perspective. I've seen kids as young as 3 learn to skate. I've watched the talent in Minnesota State in the Minnesota State High School tournament, where there will be a handful of future NHLers that, sorry, Dad, were born in America. I saw the clips of Minnesota bars erupting in joy as the U.S. scored the golden goal. I know what this win means to this Minnesota hockey community. As a Canadian, the loss is disappointing, but it does make me happy that a place that is so entrenched in hockey culture can help a nation win the gold. Even if these players are wrangling cattle in between line shifts. Joking. May we all be that entertained and upset about the parental heritage of the players 4 years from now. Signed, sincerely, a misplaced Canadian. I thought that was good stuff. Pretty well crafted, very well put together, and kind of articulates a lot of this story. And I think it is helpful when it's somebody from up there.
Right.
Who now has spent enough time here, I think, to get past the stereotypes and to say, well, no, they're invested in it here. Whether it originated here, whatever you want to say, it's not a passing fancy, frankly, in many parts of the country anymore, certainly not in the great state of Minnesota.
That's one of the cool things because Wes mentioned, my son and his buddies basically took a break from their practice yesterday to watch the overtime, and there's great videos of that, and we've seen all kinds of great videos from Minnesota.
Yes.
Haldy had a White Bear Lake one.
Yep.
One of that has circulated is a couple of teams in Raleigh, North Carolina that were on the ice that stopped. And that, I think, is what is cool about it. Al Michaels talked about Scottsdale, Arizona.
Yeah.
Obviously, we know Jason Zucker around here is from Vegas.
Yes.
He grew up there. Like the game, Louis spent the last 30 years growing the game in Florida. He'll talk about that tomorrow. Louis done such a great job growing the game down there, diligently for 6 months out of the year. But because here, we think of our
6 months in one day.
6 months in one day. It's probably about right. Like obviously in Minnesota, because the other thing that's going on right now is people are talking about the percentages of gold medal winners on these three teams, 50 or four teams, whatever, 56, 60,
Yes.
80, and now obviously 2026. And it's like 62% of them are from Minnesota or some crazy number, and 20% of them played for the U. And mostly, if you didn't grow up in War Road, if you weren't affiliated with the Christian family, you weren't anywhere near
Right,
it. And
yeah.
it's like the third generation now, I think, of Christian with Brock Nelson. That is cool. But that's why we're always number one in the ratings, and Fort Myers is number two.
Although, I guess, I don't know what the final ratings are, but going into the weekend,
We had some work to do.
well, no, we were in a tie, a first place tie with Milwaukee.
Interesting.
Milwaukee had made a big jump, but we were there, still very much in prime position. So I'm guessing tomorrow maybe we'll get the final ratings on all of that. I am curious to know what the ratings were Sunday morning.
Oh, massive.
Had to be massive. Abbott sent me just the online numbers for us on sermons. It was terrific. So, which was kind of nice because, again, the assumption is always, well, especially after the game ended, they went way up. But even then, even before then, there were a lot of people who had the sound turned down and were trying to pay attention to whatever blathering we were attempting to do. So all that's good. And it will be, memorable for a long time. I don't know if it'll stick like, Lake Placid, because, again, that's an entity all its own. As Al Michael said, that's a one-off, literally. But it will last a long time. The way it happened, how it happened, the drama with which it finished, there's no question that that game is also going to be remembered for quite some time. All right, let's do this. I want to get to the Mexico story via a texter who's got some connections there. Might even be able to help us with a guest. More on that in a minute. It does not seem very inviting right now in parts of Mexico after a drug lord was taken down. So we'll give you some details on that as we wrap up the show.
Show Wrap presented by American Pressure, commercial grade pressure washer since 1975.
It's the Bumper to Bumper Show Wrap.
I want to thank an outstanding array of guests today. That included Johnny Athletic at 3:30, Monday regular. Great stuff from Wes Walls. I like the way so-called casual hockey guy put it, said it's a great listen for... the beauty of Walls is, if you're a hardcore hockey guy, he's a great analyst. If you're a more casual hockey guy, I won't say he dumbs it down, but I think he simplifies it in a way that makes it compelling and interesting and easy to follow. Very much looking forward to more Wallsy as we get closer and closer to the postseason and who knows what beyond. And special thanks to Gaardsy's guy, Al Michaels, who joined us right before the show. We played back that interview at 5:30. If you missed it, you can podcast it a little later in the broadcast. I mentioned Mexico. It's ugly down there right now. I tell you what, let me read the text from Burl Oak Chef Guy. Concerning the turmoil in Mexico, I've been in contact with my friend of over 40 years, who's one of the hundreds of U.S.-born citizens who've been in lockdown in the community of Lake Chapala, Mexico, which is well known for its expatriates and artsy folk. The bank there has been burned down, etc. But my understanding is that it is better today. She is a theater director and connected well to the community. She could be available if this continues to percolate. I did suggest that Burl Oak Chef Guy email you to see if perhaps we could get that done. I wouldn't mind having a conversation with somebody on the ground. I think Puerto Vallarta was the worst area, right? So basically what happens here is there's the Mexican military's killing of the Jalisco New Generation cartel's chief, Nemesio Mencho Osiguera. And that cartel is considered the country's most powerful organized crime group. And let's just say they've responded in kind with all kinds of violence, shattering the peace, is the way the Wall Street Journal puts it, in Mexico's premier Pacific beach destination, among the wealthiest places in Jalisco State. I think it has kind of spread from there. I believe U.S. citizens who are either vacationing there or even, living there have been told to shelter in place. The airport is kind of a messy situation. It's a very fluid situation as well, and maybe will be stabilized pretty quick. The video is pretty alarming. What you see, burning buses, you see some buildings on fire as well, and of course where this goes from here we don't know. Puerto Vallarta has a population of about 600,000. Plumes of black smoke billowed into the sky. Looks something in places like a war zone, with police and firefighters racing to emergencies. The burning hulks of cars littered streets as well. So perhaps we can get somebody on from there and follow up with a little bit more information. Hopefully that situation will be stabilized. I'm guessing there's people in our audience who have relatives who are down there, right? It's a very popular destination,
yes,
for sure.
Time. Especially this time of year.
We can finish with this. It's called, this is from Jory, who writes, poem, kind of. This long winter's icicles, Quinn Hughes shooting miracles, bumper to bumper with Al Michaels, Wolves and 5. I like it. It's not as rhymey, but then again, maybe it doesn't have to. Maybe this is the next step in this bit.
The evolution?
That it can be a poem, kind of. It doesn't have to necessarily be in perfect rhyme, perfect
Did you see the one?
Syncopation.
I don't know if I don't think we got this. No, Bleacher Report Open Ice tweeted this out.
No.
Puck luck, Kachuk, Hellebuck, USA in 5.
Oh, that's good. I like that.
Pretty good.
That's not bad at all. It's
pretty good.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, the goalie's the story, right? I mean, we'll all agree. Although I think one of the more interesting things from Wes Walz was, when you factor in who outplayed who and all that, for him, it wasn't just the goaltending. Part of the way he evaluated it, very honestly, as a guy who now has a foot in both countries, right?
Yes.
Is that the U.S. played smarter, especially, he thought, in the overtime. He was very critical with the doofus factor involving some of the best, obviously, hockey players in the world, including Connor McDavid, who he thought was too impatient.
Yep.
Didn't sort of settle things back, stabilize things, got too much in a hurry. And so that's another really good point when it comes to the outplayed thing, that a certain intelligence in your game, the smarts factor in your game is also allowed. You're allowed to evaluate that. And he said, to be honest, you can talk about the talent all you want, but the U.S., especially in OT, played a lot smarter. And he is a big believer in the way the roster was constructed, particularly as it pertains to the power play. We brought the penalty kill. We brought up to him, and he didn't even realize this. U.S. was 18 for 18 on the power play. That's as good as you're going to get. And some of that, he's talking about left shot, right shot, being able to get the face-offs when you need them as well. All of those things factoring into it. It was a very good, wide-ranging discussion with Walsey, who eventually got to the Wild itself, and his belief that a sneaky need in his mind is for a fifth or sixth defenseman that he thinks should be a part of the equation. He acknowledges it's not as sexy as getting the big-time center.
Right.
But he thinks it should be part of the discussion as well.
Interesting to hear, speaking of McDavid, who killed us in the Four Nations, we somehow left him wide open in front of the net in overtime a year ago, as we all recall. My hockey sources, including Brandon Molesky, very uninspired by his effort back-checking on the game-winning goal.
Yeah.
And you watch it, and it's like, because there's some theory, too, it's like, well, he thought the other guy had it, and then he was going to get the puck and come right back.
That has been brought up, yes.
But I'm watching him going, man, that was not great effort by at least one and maybe two of the Canadians there in a critical spot.
And it didn't get any more critical, right?
No.
And again, here's what's the irony of it. Hockey people love to rip basketball effort, right? That's effort. Is that not effort and you're talking about effort not in a regular season game, the second period, overtime of the gold medal game. And that did not look like blue collar, we're going to do whatever we have to do to win the game in any way, shape, or form. I've got a buddy, writes Mike from Stacy, with his wife, who's in Mexico, hopefully getting out tomorrow. So as I said, I'm sure there are a lot of people who are in that boat. And maybe some things are moving pretty quickly here, headed in the better direction as well. All right. Thanks again for listening today. Don't forget, Louie, part of the show, we will revisit with Kevin Seifert, get caught up on a lot of stuff, including tragedy hitting the Vikings program as well.
And he is in Indianapolis tomorrow.
Oh, Combine.
For the Combine.
Combine,
so big Combine week for all our guys.
So there'll be a bunch of stuff to discuss with him, some serious, some more toy department related. Again, thanks for watching. Thank you for listening. Fan on Demand tonight, and then it's the Dan Patrick Show. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 3.